you've also done research on participatory methods, including qualitative research approaches, such as narrative methodology and participatory, participatory action research. That wasn't clear from the CV. Can you talk a little bit about the development of these ideas and what your involvement was in using these methods and why and how that came about?
Well, primarily I'm the narrative side of that. You're referring to the handbook on narrative and participatory action methods in psychology. And Mary Bridemiller is the participatory action person.
Okay.
So while I have done some participatory action research, I don't think of that as something I have enormous expertise in.
Okay.
But she and I were put together, I can't even remember by whom, to do a book, basically, to demonstrate that both narrative and participatory action research was a part of psychology, because we had both had the experience of being told that we weren't psychologists, that psychologists didn't talk to people. I actually had someone say to me, how could you possibly learn anything about people by talking to them? Really, I swear to God. Not a feminist psychologist.
Clearly.
That's how those two methodologies got put together, and we together identified psychologists doing both narrative and participatory work, and we created this handbook to show here's how people do it in psychology, and that was with NYU Press. We did that book. I was trained in narrative methodology at graduate school with Carol Gilligan, who had very much gone to narrative methods by the time I got there. Made a lot of sense to me. I majored in history and literature.
Right.
I did not have to unlearn any bad psychological habits. That was how I thought about psychology. So it's a very clinical approach. It's essentially asking people to tell stories about their experience with the epistemological grounding being people's lives are stories. That's how we live. We live stories. And what are the stories that people tell? That is, how have they lived their lives? And of course those stories can change at any moment in time, but at that moment in time, what is it that they say about their experience? And a very powerful way to answer that question is by asking them to tell stories and helping them to tell stories. So as a narrative methodologist, I feel that my job is to facilitate people's ability to tell a full story about their experience, given that I'm trying to help them answer my question. Not just my research question, but also my question.
Yes.
But we don't have, I hate the word probe. I will not use that word. For so many reasons, it just makes me crazy. But follow-up questions is what I think of them as, because literally it is about following the person. So I have a very general set of questions that I like everyone who's doing an interview to ask, just so we cover the same ground. But it's more about following the person so that they can tell the story they need to tell about what I want to know. And so for that reason alone, and that's how I was trained, I became very interested in narrative psychology, and at the same time I had great antipathy toward quantitative approaches. And that would be one of the contexts in which I was physically restrained in graduate school. Sitting in the front seat in statistics class, just so furious that you can't measure that. How do you know that's what it means?
Right.
And as I've matured a little, I've come to appreciate quantitative methods, and I do use them now. But at the same time, to appreciate the funny way in which the negative underbellies, the vulnerabilities of quantitative methods are rarely talked about.
Right.
So if we just talk about the vulnerabilities of all of our methodologies, then we can pick and choose and, in fact, put them together in order to maximize what any methodology can bring to understanding whatever it is we want to know.